Hey everyone. So me and Jason had so much fun talking about the alchemy and stuff. We decided to tell the whole bizarre and beautiful story about how we were brought together, a little bit about our backgrounds, and all of the craziness that has ensued over the last 20 plus years. And I mean all of it. We're going to put it all out there.
I don't know.
We'll talk we'll talk about the dragons above Salt Lake. We'll talk about the lady in the Mormon temple with the lizard eyes.
Yeah.
We'll go deep.
Okie dokie.
We'll go deep. Um, so in the pre-show, me and Jason were just kind of making some fun that like the circle of business that I created, they really don't know anything about you. And the circle of business that you've created, I've been kind of separated from for the last 12 or 15 years, and they really don't know much about me. So, but there's always like in the passing in the halls, there's always like the whisper of a mystery. There's this alchemist. There's this guy named Jason, and I'm sure it's the same on the flip flop. So, it's 20 plus years in the making, and it's going out on YouTube. And I mean, this is the kind of stuff that you really, well, we did write it and we lived it, but you're going to hear stuff from the mouths of the peoples that experienced it, and you take what you want with a grain of salt. But if you look at what we both achieved in a short amount of time, as far as products and services, unlike anything the world's ever seen, then you're going to start to understand the craziness that we had to live and still live in to continue to push the envelope of creation. And that,
Yeah, no, and it's one of those kinds of things where it's like the some of the best old accounts of like travelers and things, they would say things like, now this I saw with my own eyes, and we saw a lot with our own eyes.
so this is kind of like it'll probably turn out to be a little bit of a documentary series about the adventures of Jason and Peter. And the craziness that we've lived through. And we'll try and keep it in order as we move through the decades as much as possible. But tonight, I just kind of wanted to start a little bit with his background and mine, and kind of tell the story of how we came together, and maybe like that first year of craziness, and then we'll let that marinate out there for a while. What do you think?
Sounds good.
All right, you're up.
Should I pick up from more or less where we left off on the last one of how I got going on alchemy? And um,
Yeah, sure.
I I don't know if I mentioned that I did mention that the north end of the Great Salt Lake, or the Great Salt Lake itself, is one of the most monotomically rich sources in the world. It and the Dead Sea share a lot of similarities. And um, I didn't live far from it, so the best idea was to start into it by going out there, and it just so happens, of course, that the north end of the Great Salt Lake, which is beautiful, by the way, the water is beautiful. It's pink, and so it has an atmospheric element to it in that respect, but there's also an enormous portal out there. And so there is some old stories about a ghost train that goes across the north end of the Great Salt Lake, which was a part of the original promontory Golden Spike uniting of the railroads that were being built from the west going east and the east going west. And there are many stories of this ghost train that's out there. And so it has that time slip kind of thing going on. And I've taken people out there. In fact, that's where we took you out for your terrace. Of course, you will recall fondly, I'm sure. And
I cannot confirm or deny I'm here today. That's all I know.
by by tear through, we will eventually be getting that expressed. And so I was doing the whole deal. I'd go out full moon, gather some of that gorgeous pink water, and I'd just take my lab out there, which was just a table and some beakers and everything that I needed. And I began making materials out there. And one of the funny parts about how that all worked is that I started with what is just generally known online. Anybody can find it as the wet method to get precipitates out of any salt. And I worked on it for I don't even know how long. And the chemistry wasn't working the way it was supposed to work. And it was sort of all there was to it. So I threw batch after batch after batch out. And in the meantime, we'll say the name Calvin Young, who is a fellow alchemist who I met at roughly the same time as Peter, and um, he had made an alchemy using a process by the Essenes. Now, he was getting that out of, I think, acacia wood or something like that. So it always blew me away that he had been able to download an alchemical process involving wood, right? But that was a rhodium and iridium combo product that was awful tasting, but it connected me to things instantly that kind of blew me away. And in the meantime, I met another alchemist who had made a true monatomic gold alchemy and directed me on some things that if we get to it, we'll get to it. But um, I used those and I began to realize I was being schooled by a crowd of beings, and there were seven of them that would sort of stand around behind me. And one day I thought, after throwing out so many batches, I just, come on, what am I doing? And the thing that was strange about it was that if you've got something of a high pH, acid is supposed to drive the pH down. Well, it doesn't work that way for me. It drove it up, and so did and so did washing it. And so just using water drove the pH up. So there were hydrogen reactions that were very strangely taking place in all of it. And long story short, I thought, what is this? So I tasted it, and it had quite an effect. And it was maybe one of the only three or four voices I've ever heard in my life. And it said, Jason, you have now come to learn what all philosophers learned. You will make the stone when you can make the stone. And of course, that was a reference to the Philosopher's Stone. And it, I don't even know if we're going to be going into the Philosopher's Stone, but it isn't.
Oh, we're going everywhere.
It isn't what a lot of people think. It's a multi-layered reference that primarily just refers to the unchangeable stone of purity and Christic consciousness within. But that's how it all got launched. And within by 1999, I had a website built, and the boys at Ascension Alchemy had gone after me, you might recall, uh, and uh, and had I'm not sure what year I had it, but that was when it was probably 2001, I'm thinking, when I filed for Zero Point Technologies as a company in Utah and got the website zptech.net. And then, as you know, and as was mentioned earlier, or at least I think I did it as a comment in the first video, that I sold that to a friend, and took a 3-year break and then got back into it with blueemeraldalchemy.com. And the entire alchemical trajectory and path, uh, would take a few books to, to fully get out there. But in the midst of all that, Peter contacted me. By the way, at nearly the same time as another very gifted seer, like within a day or two of each other, which I always found fascinating. And both said nearly the same thing. I'm supposed to get some of this monoatomic powder.
Whoa. Slow down. Let me backwind a little bit and then we'll
Yeah.
kind of bring it together because there's a backstory before I contacted you. So my whole background, I have a computer engineering degree out of Boston. It's very right brain, left brain, analytical.
If you
Whatever.
don't know, it's probably right.
And everything was black and white, zeros and ones, yes or no, light bulbs off, light bulbs.
That's left.
That's it. That's who I was. I was married at the time, had two small kids, um, you know, trying to keep up with the Joneses. Um, and towards the late 90s, I started feeling really, really empty on the inside. I had become pretty successful in my career, and the more success I obtained, the more empty on the inside I became. And I was screaming for something. So fast forward another couple of years, and I don't know, we're in the early 2000s now, and I came across a book. I've always been kind of interested in UFO type stuff. I came across a book by, I think it was Lawrence Gardner, called "The Sacred Secrets of the Lost Ark" or something. So, anyways, I read the book through the book, and in the book he has several mentions of
Mifkits.
Mafis, um, this material that would be in the dew in the morning. Apparently, the Egyptian pharaohs ingested so much of this that they would flash out in front of a crowd of people. I got really interested in it, so of course I just did a Google search like everybody else did for monoatomics and
Let's
this
spell that for him. It's MF-KTZ, Mifkits.
miskits, yeah,
MF-KTZ. And that actually means in Egyptian, what then is it?
right. I still don't know, but doesn't matter.
Nobody knows, including myself, and I make it.
Okay, so how do you make it? So fast forward a little bit, and I do this Google search, and this 0 point site comes up that is one of the few sites that's making the white powder of gold, this monoatomic material. And the site was beautiful. It was mesmerizing, just like drew you in. And I ordered the Zenergy product at the time. And I remember I was coming home one day from work and I saw this glowing orb over my mailbox. And I'm like, what the fuck? It's like I took a hit of acid or something. And it's like, it's right there. And I was like, Zenergy's in there. And boom, there it was. So, of course, I didn't read the instructions. Like, a whole dropper of this stuff, right? So, I don't know, 3, 4, 5 days, a week goes by, nothing's happening. And I was gonna call this guy. It was like he sold me some salt shit tasting water. And I remember it was in August of 2003, 2004. And it's like if it's like a light bulb one, that's not even, it's like my reality shifted in a microsecond. And I mean literally everything became clear. Everything was all of a sudden energy. And then a couple seconds after that, my eyesight changed. I was able to see things in the matrix for what they were, the energy forms that they were, and how they worked and how they connected. So for about 6 weeks, I thought I had literally gone insane. I probably did. I'm probably fucking batshit crazy right now, but you know what? I love my life. How many people can say that? And I had to reach out to Jason. So I accosted this guy for I think like 3 weeks. I probably called you like 2 or 3 times a day. And the arrogant person that he is, of course he doesn't call me back because he's like, there's I got no more than two or three of you calling me every day from around the planet or whatever, right? So the first time we ever connected, I was driving home from work, and what happened?
Yeah, it's true. What he said is that I was in contact with people all over the world that all were saying pretty much the same things he was saying. And for instance, on one of the calls, I said, "Well, all right." I stayed on long enough to say, "All right, are you familiar with Ascended Masters?" And he said, "Dude, you got to understand, I'm a Catholic. I go to church." And I said, "Well, okay, when you're over that system, let me know." And I hung up on it. And and so it was another, probably even the next day or something, and we were on the phone. I actually happened to be coming back from southern Utah at the time, so I was also driving, and um and Peter was now much more open to any idea, just like, okay, just bring it, whatever it is, just bring it. I know I'm supposed to be talking to you, just bring it. And I said, all right, well, I'm going to call in Saint Germain. And Peter said, he's here. Let me pull over. And that was the moment. And he says, "Oh, and by the way, loves my car." And of course, that would be St. G. He would do something like that because he is so about opulence. You know what I mean? Nice stuff. And that was when I put you to the test. And I said, "Ask him about Porsche." You thought I meant the car. Remember that?
Yeah,
And you said, "Well, I don't know what you mean by Portia, but there's a gorgeous redheaded woman with him, and that was Portia,
I
his
think the words I used was green-eyed,
green,
fiery, red-haired beauty.
right, right, something like that. And so I thought, well, he passed that test because that's how I tested Peter the whole time was it was such a convenience that Peter was so little schooled in esoteric topics that I could test him on anything just by bringing stuff like that up. And so the minute that he had that nailed, I was going, okay, this guy really does have something going on. And we stayed on the phone, I think, for probably another hour after that, just muddling through, a test here, test there, new information, yada yada. I can't remember what St. G said, but he's something to the effect, getting you two guys together has been a hell of a process.
So that was in, I flew out to you that same year, I think, right? That was in 2004?
I think it was probably the year after that you flew out,
No, it wasn't. It
wasn't it?
was in 2005 when you came. We had the
Oh,
drought,
was it?
and we did the work, and we had the most water in recorded history in Connecticut or something. Remember that?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So, we're going to be jumping around a little bit in the early years because there's so much information there. But um, Jason flies out to my house in Connecticut, and it hadn't rained since May of any sort of precipitation, maybe a drizzle here or there. And we're sitting outside back, and it was humid. Connecticut summers can be very humid. And I was like, yeah, you got to do some work. It hasn't rained. He's like, don't worry, I'll take care of it. October 2nd, it started raining. It didn't stop raining until I think Halloween. And that month they had the most recorded rain in history in Connecticut.
Yeah.
It's like, wow. So the year before that, I flew out to Salt Lake. I had conversations with Jason about just everything. And my tolerance to absorb information back then was maybe 7 to 10 minutes tops. And I just had to go and just realign myself because I was all over the roadmap. And the energy that this guy was giving off um, back then was, should we tell him the Bulliard story, or should we skip that?
Probably better skip that one.
Okay. So I fly out there, and I don't know what to expect. So I get out there, and he's in this beautiful Ford pickup. I mean, it's high off the ground. It looks gorgeous. And I wasn't expecting this, but this is what I got. And I remember climbing in and I named the truck within 5 minutes. What was the first name of that truck?
Gabe,
Gabe. Oh my God.
because Gabriel was over the top of it.
And we went to his office and we started business. I'll leave that part out.
Yeah. And the,
And and then the work started the next morning, and my mind is a blank after that. So this is where you got to step up.
well, it's we got to piece some things together, and for everybody watching this, we have not rehearsed. We have not tried to get into any of the old notes or documentation. We just hit record and just said, let's just BS here. But the trip that we went out to the Jericho sand dunes was the second trip, correct?
Yeah,
Okay, that first trip, I think all we did was kick around the mountains, get to know each other better, start getting information from Saint Germain, start understanding more and more about various alchemical projects that were coming. Um, and then and then you went back. And I think it was the next year. Was it the next year that you came out, or maybe even the year after that, where we knew that for whatever reason we would be hunting treasure,
right.
right? And by way of explanation, I'll say that I know that the way that the off-world discarnate beings that we all work with understand psychologically how to entice people into doing the things they need done. And so you could say, yeah, we're going to send them on a treasure hunt, but everywhere we're going to send them, we're going to channel through them the work that we need done to that land, right? And that happens to be true for a lot of people who, for instance, think that they are going to some sacred spot in the world to collect some new frequencies or codes or downloads or purification, whatever, what have you. But more times than not, people don't understand that they're being utilized by higher beings to accomplish things. And often it's because ego stands in the way. And so, do you want me to keep going on this?
Yeah.
When you flew back out, there was I think this is an interesting tidbit. There was this quantum generator machine that I had on my in my living room that would have on one side of it an input well that you would use a Polaroid photograph as a witness for the person that you were working on, and you would have another Polaroid photo. Polaroids, you might recall, happen to work very well because the crystal emulsion of the instant developing chemical is some of the best as a witness. It's like literally as good as a lock of hair or something like that. And you'd put another pick in the output well. And Peter walked in and in this 2 seconds looked at that machine, saw my shaman staff in the corner, and said, whatever the hell you think that machine is doing, put it into that staff instead. And And so I was, well, I was still getting used to the fact that you are so laser sharp on that kind of stuff. And so we knew what we were going to be looking for. We weren't even quite sure how we were going to do it. Just a quick background. Utah happens to be one of the places where the conquistador Spaniards had spent tons and tons of time looking for treasure, and they wound up having to run for their lives a lot, and wound up getting buried by Native Americans. And the Native Americans would put protection spells on it, which a lot of people would probably call curses. And it just so happens that I'm sort of steeped in the Utah lore of all that, and my own genetic makeup is one of the reasons we're looking for it, and we probably will still be involved in digging one up. But I took a map of Utah, put it over the top of a table, threw a white sheet over the top of that map, gave Peter a Sharpie, and said, "Mark the map."
You gave me pins.
No, it was a Sharpie because it was we are going to use the ink to bleed through the sheet to mark the map. And
Okay.
yeah, and exactly, I thought it was an ingenious idea anyway. I said, "You're gonna have to leave it and let that ink bleed through." And he marked three spots, and then said that it was something like only one of them was legitimate. And it's a triangulation process. So we whipped away the sheet, and you discounted two of the spots, and we went with one of the spots. And I knew right where it was, and we mounted up and headed out there the next day, and that became one of the most astounding stories there is with Prometheus. Yeah, it would by then we you had already been in touch with the children of the damned, right?
The Kinderman?
And the children of the damned, when that little 1800s girl showed up outside your bathroom with her half burnt face and half burnt hair, and you didn't
Some things are best left forgotten.
you didn't even know what to say to her, so you just said, "Go to the light." But you said, I said, "Well, what are they about?" And that was when we began to find out that there was an astral layer that had the all of the kids, not all, but millions of the kids who have been abused, disenfranchised, murdered, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And that's where they had congregated on the astral level. And so Prometheus came on the scene right around there. It's sort of hard to put this in chronological
So,
order,
so,
but if
so, so hang
you
on.
want to tell them what Prometheus looks like, you should do that.
So just um, a quick thing. So the way I perceive reality and the way Jason interprets what I'm telling him sometimes are opposite ends of the rainbow. So point case, I had two golden bulls following me around at some point
That's right. They
during
were following you around for a month before
for a
that.
month, right? So, Bull. Jason thought it was
Well, we should tell
Bowls.
that in the context of the story.
Let's save that for next time. Let's cut this segment and we'll continue this next time we get together. This is where the stuff really starts just getting, I mean, this
Oh, and what we did with those kids, that is what is going on with them, Peter, will blow your mind. I mean, it will blow your mind.
yeah, well, let's get into it next time, bro.
Sounds good.
Thanks, everyone. More
Thank you.
craziness to ensue next time. Bye bye.